The alien vessel hung in low orbit, its massive silhouette blotting out stars as it cast an ominous shadow over Earth. From its polished hull, streaked with faint iridescent patterns, beams of cold white light stabbed down into the Earth's atmosphere, signaling their claim over the small blue planet. The Galactic Dominion's emissaries had arrived, and with them came the cold, bureaucratic decree: humanity was now a subjugated race. In the vessel's central command chamber, a tension hung as thick as the air was sterile. The alien dignitary, High Arbiter Zelthar, loomed tall and reptilian, his jade-scaled visage illuminated by a holographic projection of Earth below. His long, clawed fingers drummed rhythmically on the armrest of his ornate command throne. "They resist in ignorance," Zelthar hissed, his elongated fangs catching the light. "But such defiance is futile." His adjutant, a smaller, wiry alien with translucent, veined skin, nodded eagerly. "Shall I prepare the formal announcement of planetary compliance?" Before Zelthar could answer, a distant sound echoed through the chamber, a faint scream, followed by silence. He turned, his golden eyes narrowing. What was that? The adjutant tapped at a console, his movements frantic. It appears to have come from the detainment sector." Zelthar's lips curled in annoyance. "Show me." The holographic projection shifted, revealing a grim scene within one of the ship's sterile, dimly lit holding chambers. A group of uniformed aliens surrounded a lone human male, restrained and kneeling on the cold metallic floor. The man's head was bowed, blood matting his dark hair. His breathing was ragged, his defiance undiminished. It was clear he had been interrogated extensively, and violently. One of the alien guards raised a stun prod, its tip crackling with electrical energy. "Answer the question, Terran. Where are your leaders hiding?" The man's response was faint, but it carried a dangerous undercurrent of mockery. "Leaders? You think we need leaders for this?" He coughed, blood flecking his lips, but the crooked smile that followed was unmistakable. "You're in for a surprise." Zelthar's eyes narrowed further as he scrutinized the man's expression. There was no fear, no submission, only the unsettling gleam of confidence. He gestured for the feed to be muted and turned back to his adjutant. "Who is this human?" The adjutant fumbled with his data pad. "A low-ranking military officer." Marine, they call him." "A Marine," Zelthar repeated, the word foreign on his tongue. "Why does he resist so foolishly?" I do not know," the adjutant admitted, his voice quivering. "Perhaps a cultural anomaly?" Zelthar leaned back in his throne, his claws tapping once more. "Bring him to me." Moments later, the Marine was dragged into the command chamber, flanked by two towering guards. His uniform was tattered, his face battered, but his gait was steady, and his expression remained resolute. The guards forced him to kneel before Zelthar, who rose from his throne and stepped closer, his imposing figure casting a shadow over the human. "You are a curious creature," Zelthar said, his voice a low rumble. "Your kind has been conquered. Yet, you defy." The Marine met Zelthar's gaze, unflinching. "Conquered? Is that what you call this? A couple of fancy ships and some parlor tricks? You don't know what you've stepped into." Zelthar's lips curled into a sneer. "You speak as though your primitive race holds power over us." "Amusing." The Marine's smile widened, despite the blood staining his teeth. "Power? No. Ingenuity? Resilience? Now that's something you're about to learn the hard way." Zelthar tilted his head, intrigued. "Explain." The Marine took a slow, deliberate breath, his demeanor unnervingly calm. "You've made one critical mistake, Lizard Man. You killed one of us." The room fell silent. Zelthar's eyes narrowed, his confusion apparent. And now you've pissed off 8 billion. The Marine's voice was steady, laced with quiet menace. "You see, we humans, we have a knack for turning things around when it seems impossible. We might bicker, we might fight amongst ourselves, but when you come after one of us, we're united like you can't imagine." Zelthar barked a laugh, the sound cold and humorless. Your primitive unity will crumble beneath our might. The Marine chuckled, a dry, mirthless sound. Sure. But here's the thing, it's not just unity. It's what we're willing to do for it. You think you know war? You don't have the slightest idea. Zelthar's amusement faded, replaced by a flicker of unease. You are bold for a captive. I'm not bold. I'm just giving you fair warning. The Marine's smile faded, his eyes hardening. You've opened Pandora's box. And you'll regret it. Before Zelthar could respond, an alarm blared through the ship. The adjutant scrambled to the nearest console. High Arbiter, there's an anomaly. What kind of anomaly? Zelthar demanded. The Terrans, they've launched an assault. Zelthar's eyes widened. An assault? With what? The holographic display shifted to show Earth's surface. From the planet below, dozens of makeshift rockets were launching skyward. They were crude compared to the Dominion's sleek technology, but they moved with purpose, their trajectories precise. The feed then cut to the Dominion's fleet in orbit, where one of the alien vessels was already engulfed in flames. Impossible, Zelthar hissed. How could they? They're using their satellites as kinetic weapons, the adjutant interrupted, his voice panicked. Crashing them into our ships at high velocity. The Marine smirked, his earlier confidence now explained. We don't need fancy tech to hit you where it hurts. We've had decades of practice making do with what we've got. Zelthar whirled on him, fury blazing in his golden eyes. You dare. You still don't get it, do you? The Marine interrupted, his voice rising. You thought we'd just roll over. But we're humans. When you push us to the edge, we fight back with everything we've got. And you've only just seen the start. As if on cue, another explosion rocked the ship, causing the lights to flicker. Zelthar staggered, his claws digging into the armrest for support. Secure the fleet, he roared. The adjutant's hands flew across the console, but his expression grew more desperate. Their attacks are coordinated. It's as if they know our weak points. The Marine laughed, a sound filled with grim satisfaction. We do. You see, we've been watching you just as much as you've been watching us. Did you really think you'd sneak up on a species that's spent its entire history preparing for the next threat? Zelthar's composure cracked, his regal demeanor replaced by raw anger. Enough. Kill him. The guards stepped forward, their weapons raised, but the Marine didn't flinch. Instead, he looked Zelthar in the eye, his voice steady. Killing me won't stop what's coming. This isn't about me. It's about every single one of us. And we don't stop until the job's done. As the guards closed in, the ship shuddered violently, the lights dimming to an ominous red. The adjutant turned, his voice trembling. High Arbiter, we've lost control of the orbital defenses. Zelthar's claws clenched into fists, his fury now tinged with desperation. Then we fight them directly. The Marine's smile returned, faint but defiant. Good luck with that. And as the ship's alarms blared and the battle above Earth raged on, Zelthar began to understand the truth of the Marine's words. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival, they were fighting for vengeance. And they would stop at nothing to ensure the Dominion paid the price for underestimating them. The Dominion fleet hovered ominously above Earth's atmosphere, their gleaming hulls reflecting the planet's swirling blue and green hues. What had begun as an effortless conquest was quickly unraveling into chaos. Explosions rippled across the starry void as Earth's makeshift weaponry, repurposed satellites and experimental rockets struck critical vulnerabilities in the alien ships. The Marine's words were proving prophetic. Humanity, though technologically outmatched, was fighting back with a tenacity and ingenuity that the Dominion had never encountered. Inside the Dominion flagship, High Arbiter Zelthar paced the command chamber, his claws raking across the polished floor with each step. The holographic displays around him projected scenes of chaos, a fleet in disarray, fires raging in critical sectors of multiple vessels, and desperate transmissions from his captains requesting reinforcements. The human captive's earlier warning echoed in his mind, gnawing at his composure. Status report. Zelthar barked, his voice laced with frustration. The adjutant, hunched over his console, looked up, his translucent skin pulsing faintly with stress. High Arbiter, we've sustained significant losses. 6 frigates have been destroyed, and the humans' kinetic bombardment is crippling our shield generators. They've also initiated widespread cyber intrusions into our systems. Cyber intrusions? Zelthar's head snapped toward the adjutant, his golden eyes narrowing. How could they breach our networks? They appear to be using low-tech, decentralized attacks, the adjutant explained, his voice quivering. Their methods are unconventional, bypassing our advanced defenses entirely. It's as if they're exploiting the very sophistication of our systems against us. Zelthar growled, his claws flexing. These primitives are resourceful, I'll give them that. But resourcefulness will not save them. Prepare the next wave of strikes. Target their major population centers. Before the adjutant could respond, a new alarm blared through the chamber. The holographic display shifted to reveal an incoming transmission. It was heavily distorted, but the figure of a human woman emerged, her sharp eyes glaring defiantly at the alien leaders. She was dressed in what appeared to be a tactical uniform, her dark hair pulled back in a tight braid. Behind her, a wall of computer screens flickered with streams of code and tactical data. "This is Major Elena Vasquez of the United Earth Resistance," the woman declared, her voice cutting through the distortion like a blade. "High Arbiter Zelthar, your actions have not gone unnoticed. You came here expecting an easy conquest, but you've underestimated humanity's resolve. We will not surrender. And you will not leave our skies intact." Zelthar sneered at the transmission. Bravado from a species on the brink of annihilation. Your defiance only ensures your destruction. Major Vasquez's lips curled into a faint, humorless smile. "We've studied your tactics, Arbiter. We know your weaknesses. Your centralized command structure is efficient, but it's also fragile. And fragile things break." The transmission cut abruptly, leaving the chamber in tense silence. Zelthar's claws scraped against his armrest as he turned to his adjutant. "Track that signal. I want her location now." The adjutant nodded and began typing furiously, but before he could finish, another explosion rocked the flagship, causing the lights to flicker. Zelthar's balance faltered, and he gripped the edge of his throne to steady himself. "Report," he roared. The adjutant's voice was a mix of panic and disbelief. "The humans have deployed high-orbit projectiles, targeting critical power conduits across the fleet. Our shielding systems are failing, and several reactors are nearing overload." Zelthar slammed his fist against the armrest. "Then activate the countermeasures. Deploy the drone swarms." As the adjutant scrambled to execute the command, Zelthar turned his gaze to the human prisoner still restrained in the corner of the chamber. The Marine was battered, his uniform torn, but his expression remained maddeningly calm. He leaned back against the wall as though watching an inevitable truth unfold. "Tell me," Zelthar hissed, his voice dangerously low. "How does your species continue to resist? Is it desperation? Madness? Or something else?" The Marine chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. "It's simple, really. We've got nothing left to lose. You took the first shot. Now we're going all in." "All in?" Zelthar repeated, his voice dripping with disdain. "Your world is crumbling. Your people are dying. What can you possibly hope to achieve?" The Marine's smile faded, replaced by a steely determination. "Survival. And maybe a little payback while we're at it." Before Zelthar could respond, the adjutant interrupted, his voice trembling. "High Arbiter, the drones are encountering resistance. The humans are jamming our command signals." "What?" Zelthar snarled, his claws digging into the console. "How is that possible?" The adjutant hesitated, then pulled up a new holographic display. It showed a network of human satellites broadcasting interference patterns across multiple frequencies. "They've repurposed their civilian communication satellites. They're flooding our channels with primitive but effective signal noise." Zelthar's composure cracked further, his golden eyes blazing with fury. Primitive fools! They dare! A deafening crash interrupted him as another explosion shook the flagship. This one was closer, reverberating through the walls and causing a section of the chamber to collapse. Sparks rained down as the lights dimmed further, casting the room in an eerie red glow. Zelthar staggered to his feet, his breathing heavy. Evacuate critical personnel. Seal off the compromised sections. The adjutant nodded frantically, issuing orders through his console, but it was clear that the situation was spiraling out of control. The Dominion's once impenetrable fleet was being dismantled piece by piece, not by superior firepower, but by human ingenuity and relentless determination. In the midst of the chaos, the Marine leaned forward, his voice cutting through the din. You wanted to know what makes us different, Arbiter? Here's your answer: we don't fight because we have to. We fight because we choose to. And that makes us unstoppable. Zelthar turned to him, his claws twitching with barely contained rage. You are nothing more than an insect defying a flame. Your resistance is meaningless. The Marine smirked. Funny thing about flames, they burn out if you smother them. As if on cue, another explosion rocked the ship, and the holographic displays flickered one last time before going dark. The chamber was plunged into silence, broken only by the distant sounds of emergency sirens and the faint hum of backup power systems. Zelthar's claws clenched into fists, his regal demeanor reduced to a primal snarl. For the first time in his long career, the High Arbiter felt the cold sting of doubt. The humans were proving to be more than just a nuisance. They were a force to be reckoned with. And the battle for Earth was far from over. The flagship trembled violently as another explosion erupted, this time deep within the ship's engineering sector. High Arbiter Zelthar stood in the dimly lit command chamber, his claws gripping the edge of his throne as the chaotic battle unfolded on every flickering holographic display. He could feel the gravity of the situation bearing down on him. This was no longer a mere exercise in planetary subjugation, it had become a war of survival, and the humans were unrelenting. High Arbiter, the adjutant shouted, his translucent skin pulsing with alarm. The engineering core has sustained critical damage. We've lost primary propulsion and life support systems are failing across multiple decks. Zelthar turned sharply, his golden eyes narrowing. Dispatch repair drones immediately. And reroute power from non-essential systems to the shields. The adjutant hesitated, his trembling hands clutching the console. High Arbiter, our shield generators have been compromised. The humans' kinetic projectiles overloaded their systems. We have no defensive capabilities remaining. The Marine, still restrained in the corner of the chamber, chuckled, his voice cutting through the tense silence like a blade. No shields, no propulsion, sounds like you're running out of options, Zelthar. Zelthar turned to the human, his jaw tightening in fury. You think this is victory, Terran? Your primitive strikes are nothing more than desperation. The Marine's smile widened, blood still crusted at the corners of his mouth. Desperation? Nah. This is strategy. You came to Earth thinking you'd crush us without breaking a sweat. But now you're learning the hard way, you don't pick a fight with humanity and walk away unscathed. Zelthar sneered, his claws flexing. Your kind is reckless. You fight with no regard for your own survival. That's where you're wrong, the Marine said, leaning forward as much as his restraints allowed. We fight because we value our survival. But we also fight because we know what's at stake. Every loss we take is a spark. And those sparks ignite a fire you'll never put out. Before Zelthar could respond, a sudden blaring alarm echoed through the chamber, accompanied by a flashing red light. The adjutant's voice cracked with panic. High Arbiter. The humans have launched another wave of strikes. This time they're targeting the fleet's central command relay. Zelthar's eyes widened. The command relay? That's impossible. It's heavily fortified. Not anymore, the adjutant interrupted, his voice trembling. Their kinetic bombardments have disabled the fortifications. They're using concentrated EMP bursts to disrupt our communication systems. If they succeed, we'll lose coordination across the entire fleet. Zelthar slammed his fist against the armrest, his voice a thunderous roar. Deploy all remaining forces to defend the relay. We cannot lose it. The adjutant scrambled to relay the orders, but the Marine's low, mocking laugh drew Zelthar's attention once more. You're playing right into their hands, the Marine said, shaking his head. You're so focused on the relay that you're not even asking yourself why we're targeting it. Zelthar narrowed his eyes. Explain yourself. The Marine grinned, his teeth bared like a predator toying with its prey. You think the relay is our endgame? Nah. That's just the bait. While you're busy defending it, we're setting up the real strike. And by the time you figure it out, it'll be too late. Zelthar's fury boiled over, and he lunged forward, gripping the Marine by the collar. You will tell me what your kind is planning, or I will end you here and now. The Marine didn't flinch. His voice was steady, defiant. Go ahead. Kill me. But that won't stop what's coming. In fact, it'll only make it worse for you. Zelthar hesitated, his claws tightening around the fabric of the Marine's uniform. There was something unsettling about the human's unwavering confidence, even in the face of certain death. He released the Marine with a snarl, shoving him back against the wall. Secure the relay, Zelthar ordered, his voice cold and sharp. And double the guard around this Terran. If he so much as blinks suspiciously, eliminate him. The adjutant nodded and hurried to carry out the commands, but the tension in the chamber was palpable. Time was slipping away, and every decision Zelthar made seemed to play into the human's hands. Meanwhile, in a hidden underground bunker on Earth, Major Elena Vasquez and her team were coordinating the next phase of the resistance. The room was a hive of activity, with technicians hunched over glowing terminals and engineers assembling improvised weapons from whatever resources they could salvage. On a large central screen, a live feed showed the Dominion fleet in orbit, their once imposing formation now fractured and chaotic. Status report, Vasquez said, her voice calm but authoritative. A young technician looked up from his console. The fleet's central relay is heavily damaged, but their forces are regrouping to defend it. Our decoy is working. Good, Vasquez replied. What's the status of the strike team? En route to the flagship, the technician said. They've successfully infiltrated one of the Dominion's disabled frigates and are using it as cover to approach the Arbiter's vessel. Vasquez nodded, her expression steely. This is it. The flagship is their nerve center. Take that out, and the entire fleet falls apart. Another technician hesitated before speaking. Major, are you sure this will work? Their technology is light years ahead of ours. Even with their fleet in disarray, the flagship is still heavily armed. Vasquez turned to the technician, her gaze unwavering. We don't need to outgun them. We just need to outthink them. The Dominion relies on centralized control. It's their greatest strength, but it's also their greatest weakness. If we can sever their command structure, they'll crumble under their own weight. The technician nodded, though his expression remained tense. Vasquez placed a hand on his shoulder. Trust in the plan. We've come this far because we refuse to give up. And we're not stopping now. On board the flagship, Zelthar watched as his forces scrambled to defend the relay. The human's relentless assault was stretching his fleet to its limits, and his frustration was mounting. The adjutant's voice broke through his thoughts. High Arbiter, we've detected a small craft approaching the flagship. It's using the wreckage of one of our frigates as cover. Zelthar's eyes narrowed. Humans? Most likely, the adjutant confirmed. Should we intercept? Zelthar considered for a moment, then shook his head. No. Let them come. They'll find nothing but their own demise waiting for them. The adjutant hesitated. High Arbiter, what if? Silence. Zelthar snapped. I will not be lectured on tactics by my own subordinate. Prepare the defenses and ensure that no human sets foot on the ship. Unbeknownst to Zelthar, the strike team aboard the disguised craft was already executing their plan. Aboard the Dominion frigate, a group of highly trained human operatives moved with precision and purpose, using stolen Dominion tech to bypass security measures. At their helm was a grizzled veteran named Captain Reynolds, his face hardened by years of battle. "We're coming in hot," Reynolds said over the comms. "Remember the objective: disable their command core and extract any critical intel. We get one shot at this, so let's make it count." As the strike team breached the flagship's hull, the stage was set for the climactic confrontation. The Dominion was about to learn what humanity was truly capable of, and Zelthar, for all his arrogance, would come face to face with the unyielding force of human resolve. The hull of the Dominion flagship groaned under the weight of the strike team's infiltration. Captain Reynolds and his operatives moved with calculated precision through the labyrinthine corridors, their presence masked by the ship's own damage alarms and the chaos of its failing systems. Smoke billowed from ruptured conduits, sparks cascaded from the walls, and the dull hum of emergency sirens echoed through the vessel. Every step forward brought them closer to their objective, the command core. "Reynolds, we're nearing the core," whispered Lieutenant Carter, her eyes scanning the holographic map projected on her forearm. "But we've got multiple heat signatures ahead, looks like heavy security." Reynolds nodded, his face a mask of grim determination. "Stick to the plan. Distraction first, then we move in." Carter tapped her wrist, triggering a secondary device. Somewhere deep within the flagship, a controlled explosion detonated, triggering a cascade of alerts across the ship's systems. The Dominion soldiers, already stretched thin by Earth's coordinated attacks, were forced to divert their attention. "That'll draw them off," Carter said, her voice steady despite the high stakes. Reynolds motioned for his team to move. They crept forward, their footsteps silent, their breathing controlled. The strike team was equipped with stolen Dominion tech, adaptive cloaking devices and sound-dampening boots, but their greatest asset was their unrelenting focus. This was humanity's last, best chance to cripple the enemy's fleet. In the command chamber, High Arbiter Zelthar watched the chaos unfold on the remaining functional displays. His adjutant was frantically issuing orders, his translucent skin glowing faintly under the strain. "High Arbiter, the humans have breached our defenses. They're inside the ship." Zelthar turned slowly, his golden eyes narrowing. "Inside the flagship?" His voice was quiet, but it carried an edge sharp enough to cut through steel. "Yes," the adjutant stammered. "They're making their way toward the command core." Zelthar's claws dug into the armrest of his throne. For all his technological superiority, he had underestimated these creatures. Their audacity, their cunning, it was unlike anything he had encountered in his long years of conquest. "Seal the core," Zelthar ordered. "Divert all remaining forces to that sector. They cannot be allowed to reach it." The adjutant hesitated. "High Arbiter, if we concentrate our forces there, we risk leaving other critical systems undefended." "Do as I command." Zelthar roared, his composure shattering. "These humans are no mere pests. They are a plague, and we will not let them fester any longer." The strike team reached the final corridor leading to the command core. The entrance was heavily fortified, with automated turrets scanning for movement and Dominion guards patrolling the area. Reynolds signaled for his team to hold their position as he assessed the situation. "Options?" he asked, his voice low but steady. Carter studied the defenses. "We can hack the turrets, but it'll take time. The guards are another problem, looks like they've got energy shields." Reynolds considered their options. Time was running out, and the Dominion reinforcements would arrive any minute. "We go loud," he decided. "Hit them hard and fast. Carter, take the left flank. Davis, cover the rear. I'll handle the turrets." The team sprang into action with practiced precision. Carter unleashed a barrage of EMP grenades, disabling the guards' shields and leaving them vulnerable. Reynolds took aim with his rifle, firing specialized rounds that penetrated the turret's armored casings. Davis held the rear, ensuring no reinforcements could sneak up on them. The battle was brutal and quick. The Dominion guards fought with cold efficiency, but they were unprepared for the sheer ferocity of the human assault. Within moments, the corridor was littered with the bodies of fallen soldiers and the smoking remains of destroyed turrets. Reynolds approached the sealed entrance to the command core. "Carter, get this door open." Carter knelt by the control panel, her fingers flying over the alien interface. "This'll take a minute. Keep watch." As Carter worked, Reynolds turned to the rest of his team. "We're almost there. Stay sharp." The door hissed open, revealing the heart of the Dominion flagship. The command core was a massive, glowing sphere suspended in the center of the chamber, its surface pulsing with energy. Surrounding it were banks of consoles and monitors, each displaying streams of alien data. "Move," Reynolds ordered. The team entered the chamber, their weapons raised and their eyes scanning for threats. "Reynolds, this is it," Carter said, her voice filled with awe and urgency. "If we disable this core, the entire fleet will be paralyzed." Reynolds nodded. "Then let's get to work." In the command chamber, Zelthar watched the feed from the core's internal cameras. His eyes burned with fury as he saw the human strike team infiltrating the heart of his flagship. "High Arbiter," the adjutant began, his voice trembling, "should we deploy the self-destruct sequence?" Zelthar hesitated. The self-destruct sequence would ensure the humans could not use the flagship's technology against the Dominion, but it would also mean sacrificing his own life and the lives of his crew. For the first time, doubt crept into his mind. "No," Zelthar said finally. "I will not be defeated by these primitives. Activate the core's defense protocols." As the strike team worked to disable the core, the room suddenly came alive with movement. Panels slid open, revealing a series of automated defense drones. The drones swarmed toward the humans, their energy weapons glowing menacingly. "Incoming!" Davis shouted, opening fire. The team fought desperately, their movements coordinated and efficient. But the drones were relentless, their attacks precise. Carter ducked behind a console, her fingers never leaving the interface as she continued to hack into the core's systems. "Reynolds, I need more time," she yelled. "You've got it," Reynolds replied, his voice resolute. He stepped into the path of the advancing drones, his weapon blazing. Each shot found its mark, but for every drone he destroyed, another seemed to take its place. Finally, with a triumphant shout, Carter broke through the core's defenses. "I'm in. Initiating shutdown now." The core's glowing sphere flickered, its energy dimming. The drones faltered, their movements growing sluggish before they collapsed to the ground. The team stood in stunned silence as the core powered down completely. Reynolds turned to Carter. "Good work. Now let's get out of here." On the bridge, Zelthar watched in disbelief as the flagship's systems began to fail. The holographic displays went dark, and the ship shuddered violently as its power drained away. "No," Zelthar whispered, his voice filled with rage and despair. "This cannot be." The adjutant looked at him, fear etched across his features. "High Arbiter, the humans have succeeded. The fleet is in disarray. We must retreat." Zelthar clenched his claws, his pride warring with the grim reality of the situation. Finally, he turned away, his voice hollow. "Order the retreat." As the Dominion fleet began to withdraw, Earth's skies cleared. The Resistance celebrated, their cheers echoing through the bunkers and makeshift command centers. Humanity had done the impossible, they had turned back the might of the Dominion. Reynolds and his team stood on the surface, watching as the alien ships vanished into the stars. Carter turned to him, a weary but triumphant smile on her face. "We did it." Reynolds nodded, his gaze unwavering. "Yeah. But this is just the beginning. They'll be back. And next time, we'll be ready." Humanity had won the day, but the war was far from over. What the Dominion had underestimated, what they could never understand, was that humanity's strength lay not in its technology, but in its indomitable spirit.